All right, I think we're live. So I'm going to check my page just to make sure because
All
for some
right.
reason something was wrong on my end. Yes, we are. Okay, cool. Yeah, because even like the Facebook icons look weird. So I was like, is there something wrong?
Really?
Yeah. So, but no, it is. It says that we're live. So that's good. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. I already thanked you for joining me. This is like awesome. And I know you just came out with your book. You and Mustafa came out with a book and everything. So I do want to get to all that. But I really want to learn, like I just want to know a little bit about you, where you started, how you got into this. Are you more skeptic than you are believer? Like, all that kind of stuff. Um, you are the person that I get very nervous around during an investigation because I know zilch about equipment and the technical things, like, but I do love having you around during investigations because I don't know the things that you know. So it helps me to have what I feel would be a legit investigation. You know what I mean? Um, so I do watch the show. I learn, I try to absorb things, but when you don't, so for me, that's like awesome. You're smart as shit.
Oh no, not too smart.
So how did you get into all this, and how did everything just start?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, in 1995, I lost my oldest brother to cancer, and in 2004, I lost another brother to suicide. So that kind of sent me on my journey into the paranormal. Never really had an experience per se. It was more just about having to grow up quickly at a young age and really look at the possibility of a life after death. Right. So being 8 years old and having my oldest brother, who was only 24 at the time, very young, pass away of cancer was very difficult and was something I had to deal with at that very young age. And I had to look
Yeah.
death in the face and really say, is there something more than life? And so 2001, my grandmother, who was the matriarch of my family, passed away as well. And then 2004, my other brother, Gary, unfortunately committed suicide, died by suicide. And it just sent me into this whole other mindset, this whole other ideology of the possible existence of a life after death. And before I actually ever stepped foot into the field to conduct research of any kind, I read as much literature as I could about ghosts and hauntings, everything from Hans Holzer to the Warrens, Emily Peach, PhD Dr. Hazel M. Dennings. I mean, all these amazing people. And I instantly gravitated towards the scientific aspect of life after death. Not that I didn't look into the psychic side, the metaphysical side, the religious side, even. It was more about the fact that the science, I think, had a more logical and practical approach to trying to understand these things. And I was very lucky to found the American Paranormal Research Association in 2006 to solely investigate historical locations throughout the United States. Started working with some amazing medical doctors, engineers, and scientists. Started working with Dr. Harry Clore, the only person in history to receive two PhDs simultaneously, and really had myself grounded in that scientific principle. And then 2018 rolls around, I get contacted by Pilgrim Films, Pilgrim Media Group, about a show called Ghost Hunters. And I was able to implement all those years of research I've been conducting into the new version, the A&E's version of Ghost Hunters. And it's been hell of a ride, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But how do you get yourself involved with those people? Like how do you get yourself to be able to work with people like that? I mean, there had to be some type of a mutual respect there somehow,
Right.
I mean, because to me that's very impressive to work with people like all those the doctors and the scientists and stuff. I mean, are they as well researching the paranormal side of things and you're working together? I mean,
Right. Well, I mean, I got really lucky with a lot of the instances because I would do a lot of lectures throughout the United States at historical societies, museums, things like that. And these people would go to those lectures, all of them which were fundraisers. We raised a lot of money for these locations throughout the years, and that's something I'm very proud of, because keeping history alive for future generations is something that's really important to me. But so the first engineer I ever worked with was a man named Ed Marg, who worked as a consultant with NASA and other various amazing, 4-letter type of institutions. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I worked with him for a number of years. I met him by going and investigating in a place called Heritage Junction Park in Newhall, California. And he happened to be one of the volunteers at the museum. And he saw what I was doing with paranormal research and always had an interest in it. He wasn't an investigator himself, didn't really have an interest per se, but he really liked what I was doing when it came to the fundraising efforts. And him and I just sat down and started to have a lot of conversations about what I was trying to do. And he just, volunteered himself to help me out in this regard and the research. And then with Dr. Harry Clore, I was introduced to him by a friend of mine, an APRA investigator who I worked with for many years, who said, "Hey, I met this guy randomly on a flight to Sundance. He's an amazing scientist. I mean, one of the most respected scientists in the world." And we were introduced in 2010, and we started working together. And when it comes to the medical doctors, same thing. I would give these lectures throughout the years, and they would happen to be in the audience, and they would see the data that I was providing in those lectures, and they would come up and give their 2 cents on it and say, "Hey, look, what you're doing is not only credible and interesting. I can't explain some of this stuff, and I would like to talk to you about it further." So it kind of kismet in that way, where it just happened by chance. So very lucky in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, because of me, I mean, I've actually reached out to, because I like having all aspects, all the rays of anything unknown, paranormal, whatever. And so like, I've reached out to a couple of people that do, because I've always was under the impression that parapsychology had something to do with paranormal, where I'm learning that it isn't. And they think, the paranormal side of things is taboo and this and that. And I'm like, I just want to have one of them on, you know what I mean? To hear what the difference is, because not a lot of people realize they are totally different, and they just, nobody reaches back out to me. So, I mean, I think it's really cool that you got to work with people that normally wouldn't work in this type of field that we're in.
Right. Right. Very lucky. And with Dr. Harry Clore, for instance, in 2014, we did an episode on Science Channel called The Unexplained Files, where we actually went into Preston Castle, the former boys' reform school in Ione, California. That is a huge case. I mean, many people have investigated there over the years. Thousands upon thousands of people have gone through there and had experiences. And we went in and conducted a huge scientific experiment in that location. That was very controversial for the field, because at that point, I mean, obviously there's a lot of paranormal shows that were in existence at that point.
Right.
10 years prior, even. I mean, Ghost Hunters, the original, started in 2004. So it was about a decade into that genre at that point. But when we actually came in and started to implement this very serious scientific principle, it kicked off a firestorm out there in the paranormal community, where people just kind of almost not really shunned us, but really started to talk down on us, because they thought that we were coming out from a skeptical point of view, trying to shoot everything down. But that's absolutely not the case. That's not what we were trying to do at all. We're just trying to find the logical, practical reason for what this perceived phenomena may be first, before we jump to conclusions. And ever since then, that kind of, fueled a fire inside me to keep that research alive and continue to do so, because if we're ever going to be taken seriously by the public and scientific community, we really have to work with scientists and really look at third parties, that these amazing, brilliant people from various technical industries that can really help us maintain a grounded, logical approach to this genre is going to be very beneficial for all of us. And that's something that I continue to do, and I'm very excited about.
No, I think that's awesome, because, and I think there has to be, education somehow, whether it's through TV, because unfortunately TV has made it very gimmicky with all of the other shows. And I'm not including Ghost Hunters or even Ghost Nation. Those 2 shows to me, I've always had respect for, and you know what I mean? And I know it's TV. I know there's got to be a little bit of entertainment in there, but and anybody that watches my show on the rag knows, like I've always said that, and like all the other shows have made it very gimmicky and very just not what it's about. So I think, what you're doing and trying to show, like, okay, yeah, no, not we're not looking for a ghost. We're looking
Mhm.
for a reason as to why this is happening and what it may be, So I think that's great. And I wish there was a way to get that out there, because TV has made it so, I mean, like, even if you were to come out with a show
Yeah.
and you were being like 1000% legit, and like, people would still be like, oh, but it's TV. Like, look at all the other stuff, it would be, how do you do that? How do you
That's why
get that?
that's why we released a book with Mustafa Gadaglari called Elements of a Haunting. That's one of the
Yes.
reasons why we did that. So it was a very great segue from the research I've been conducting for 17 years, 3 of which was with Mustafa on the show on A&E's Ghost Hunters, where one of the first times I met Mustafa, him and I just started talking theory and methodology, protocol, ethics, standards, all these things that is majorly lacking in the paranormal field and in the paranormal genre. And him and I instantly said, man, we have to get all this research, compile it, and let's write a book about it. Let's try our best to make a manual for all paranormal enthusiasts and investigators out there from a logical, scientific standpoint, to say, hey, look, if we want to be taken seriously, these are the measures, these are the ethics, the standards, the protocol, the methodology that we have to follow in order to be taken seriously. And it's not like we just pulled that out of our ass. This is coming back from 17 years worth of research and consulting with these various professionals from technical industries that said, if you follow these guidelines and these standards, this is how you're going to be taken seriously and being looked at in a proper light. So everything you're going to see in that book not only follows those standards and those guidelines, but actually implements it into research. And we lay
Right.
out data, historical facts, and all the research, and really show people how to properly use these guidelines, the protocols, the standards, and the ethics that we lay out in the book. And not only that, we're actually introducing something that's never really been done in the paranormal genre, and that's a classification system. Because every time we go to a haunted location, you say, is it haunted or not? And sometimes people go as far as to say, is it intelligent? Is it residual? It really never goes beyond that, right?
Right.
Intelligent, residual, demonic, whatever it may be. We've really taken that a step further in the sense of actually implementing a full classification system based off of historical fact and data to say, hey, look, this is what we believe the phenomena may be from this standpoint. And this goes back to terminology being used, going back to 1895 from the London Ghost Club, people like Hans Holzer, the Warrens, I mean, everyone, Sarah E. Stepp, Emily Peach, Dr. Hazel M. Dennings, all these amazing researchers, some of which aren't widely known in our community because they didn't have movies made after them. You know what I mean?
Right.
These brilliant people that conducted amazing research, and compiling all that together and using that and putting that together is something that we're trying to do with this book. And I hope people really enjoy it. Like Dr. Harry Clore said when I first started working with him, from a scientific principle, if we're going to take this seriously, you can't just go to a place and say, is it haunted or not? You have to have a genus and species. You have to have more to it. You don't go to a zoo and say you saw a bunch of animals. You go to a zoo and you say you saw lions, tigers, monkeys, elephants, whatever it may be. We can't go to a location and be like, oh, it's haunted, great. That's it. So that's what this book's going to do, and we're very excited about it.
And that's awesome, because I always say all the time, as humans, we have to have labels for everything. That's what we do. So, because I always say, like when we talk about Bigfoot, I say, or even spirits, like, what do you call them? What are they? We don't know what they are. So we just label it ghost or spirit, you know what I mean? Because that's, as humans have to do that,
Mm-hmm.
And what is it? I mean, I think the craziest movie that ever messed me up was The Others. If you ever saw that movie, the whole time I'm thinking Nicole Kidman is like being haunted, and at the end of the movie, you're like, what? Like, it blew my mind. And I'm like, what if that's really how it is? What if it's this alternate? You just don't know what it is, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
So the equipment. aspect of this. Do you trust the equipment that you use?
Absolutely. I only use equipment that can be trusted, and
Mm-hmm.
equipment that's actually used by other technical industries that is being adapted into our field. We're not having people build something in their garage that is purposed and meant to communicate with ghosts.
Right.
Anytime someone does that, it's a dangerous proposition that you're making, and you're actually putting yourself in the heavy realm of pseudoscience, in the fact that you're already biased in that situation. You're
Right.
using a device built by someone to speak and communicate with what they perceive to be entities or ghosts. That's not the way it's supposed to be. We have to have equipment that is used by other fields and adapted into our field to collect factual data that can be reviewed by those professionals from those technical industries, because they can very easily tell us if it's something that's natural or something they can't explain. So if it's something that's completely natural that otherwise would end up on a show or end up on someone's website or on Facebook, we are flooding this field with misinformation and something
Right.
that we can't take seriously. We have
Right.
to, we have to have proper data that has been tested by a third party, that has been looked at by a professional that can say, hey, look, these are the parameters of how this piece of equipment works. What you collected here, we don't know what's going on. Now that's paranormal, and that's something we're looking for. So that's what we do, and that's what we take, pride in, and that's something that we're going to continue to do with our research going forward.
Yeah. So like what I do as opposed to what you do, right? So I sit there and I just listen to like 12 hours of EVPs and I'm done. Because like I said, I don't use equipment that much. You know what I mean? I'm not really, and I use the gimmicky stuff, right? I use the stuff that when I do, if I do. All right. So equipment on investigations unless we are holding a public event
Mhm.
and we're helping out with that, and the people, the enthusiasts, the people that pay to go to the stuff, they want to use the stuff that they see on TV. So we'll let them use the trigger props, the REM pods, the colorful noisy stuff.
Sure.
Me, I just use my recorder, barely, but you have a lot of stuff that you use, data loggers and stuff like that, where I'm assuming that you going over your evidence takes a lot longer than what I would, even though 12 hours of audio is, a long time.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
But and you have a family, right?
I do.
So how does that allow, you have to have somebody that's very understanding, you know what I mean, with all the time, because I'm assuming you're giving a lot of time to that portion
Absolutely.
of your life.
Well, what's interesting about this is the fact that, my family came to be during COVID. So things have changed, in the past year. I haven't conducted a lot of research since all this broke out. So when I go and conduct research and I go and investigate locations, that time is allocated to that. And then once that's finished, I'm back home with my family and everything. So I don't really mix those times together, if that makes sense. It's very much allocated into other things. So for instance, Mustafa and I here pretty soon are going out to film a new series and investigate a location out of the continental United States that is very much out of our comfort zone, something that we have never done. And when I go do that, once that work is done there, it's done there. I come back and I need to refresh, recharge, and be with my family. So that's what matters most. So I definitely separate those times in a big way because, mixing the two together can be very difficult at times, not only from the family perspective, but, sometimes from a spiritual perspective. It can be tough putting yourselves in those situations.
Yeah. But I mean, you do have to, so she does she believe in that kind of stuff? Does she believe in ghosts and stuff like that? Or
yeah, I think she's very much like me in that regard. So where
gotcha.
we're both, I think we would call natural skeptics. And the term skeptic gets a negative connotation associated with it, which is very sad. And I always quote Dr. Harry Clore on this, who's a brilliant scientist, and he talks about skepticism and skeptics. A real skeptic is someone that is not a non-believer. A real skeptic is someone that wants to find evidence that it exists. a lot of people that call themselves skeptics really aren't skeptics. They're just plain out non-believers because there's never going to be anything that can convince them otherwise. But a
Right.
true skeptic is someone that's going to look at data and look at the information in front of them and draw a conclusion. And that's something that I do. And that's something
Yeah.
that I hope other people will adapt, which there's a lot of people out there that do it. But the term skeptic gets thrown around a lot by people that are just, plainly non-believers. So it's a strange term.
Yeah, I mean, and I call myself the healthy skeptic. I
Mhm.
believe, because I feel that I've had experiences and, captured stuff that I can't explain and this and that. Again, just recorder. You know what I mean? Like I'm not doing the temperatures and the gauges and this, you know what I mean? Which, yes, do I think I should? Yeah, but I believe in it. I'm not trying to convince you that it exists. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm doing it because I love it and I feel that it does. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I don't, but I do. When I go somewhere, I'm not looking for a ghost. Anybody that's investigated with me knows I will go in somewhere and I will look under beds. I open cupboards. I do, you know what I mean? Like I'm looking for anything and everything, and hoping that maybe we get something, but you don't get something everywhere. And that's the other thing that people don't realize. There was a question. Hold on. Um, is there a location you have never investigated as on your wish list?
Oh, absolutely. Tower of London is probably number one on my list. Again, goes back to what, Mustafa and I always call the elements of a haunting, right? We think that there are very specific locations, not only from a historical standpoint, but a geographical standpoint that are more likely to have what we perceive to be paranormal activity than others. And I think that I very much think that the Tower of London would be one of those locations. And hopefully, one day I'll have the opportunity to go out there and conduct an actual investigation and a study of a place like Tower of London. That would be ideal for sure.
That would be awesome. You could go. Oh, you would have to definitely record the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Um, I would like to know Brandon's opinion on EM pumps or boosters. Do those pieces of equipment really work?
I would stay away from them in the sense that anytime, at least from my research, going into a location, I wanted to know all the natural environmental conditions. Including man-made EMF, man-made or natural EMF. So I think that once you start to introduce that into the environment, it's going to contaminate all of your readings and recordings. So it may work. That's possible. In theory, I know there's a lot of researchers out there, I mean, for a number of years, going back to the 60s and 50s, that they believe that entities and ghosts are made up of electromagnetic frequencies and radiation. Is there evidence to support that? I don't think so at this point in time. But I definitely want to know what every aspect of the environmental conditions are associated with a location prior to the investigation, during the investigation, and after the investigation. So I think introducing man-made EMF into a location will contaminate that environment. So that's something I stay away from personally.
That's so true. I mean, you are contaminated. You're
Yeah,
making a natural environment unnatural on purpose.
exactly.
And the intent behind it is to communicate with spirits or bring spirits out. So obviously, in your head, you're thinking, and I always say the mind is a powerful thing. If a woman can convince herself she's pregnant and she isn't, or she can convince herself she is when she's not, you know what I mean? Like, the mind is a powerful thing, and I would say that the one piece of equipment that I do love to use are the old school tri-field meters.
Mhm.
That's it. And then
Yeah.
my recorder. I love those old school tri-field meters.
Can I say I would stay away from those? If I were
Really?
you. Yeah, absolutely. They're easily contaminated, way more so than people realize.
Yeah. Nope,
Way
I
more
didn't know that.
so. The new trifields, which are digital now, are amazing. The same exact manufacturer, I mean, the same exact model, just now in a digital form, is far more shielded now against man-made radio frequencies, man-made cell phone frequencies, EMF. But I will say right now, those old school tri-field meters are very easy manipulated, very easily contaminated. And I've seen instances in the past where people will use that device to act like they're communicating with spirits when they're just keying off a walkie on the side of their hip. And it's very easily triggered in that regard. So if I were you, I would go with the new model because it doesn't work in that regard. I've actually tested that with Mustafa, where the new digital versions are very well shielded and they will not be triggered by man-made frequencies like that as easily. So
yeah, I know a lot of equipment is triggered by those things. I didn't know that I would always use it as I was never, because you could hear it. I would put it in a room we weren't in.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And then that way, if we heard something going on, you know what I mean? Again, with that, you had to take the weather into effect and this and that. So I really didn't use it that much. But when I did use it, I did love it. I did. Because it didn't really, I knew when it would trigger or whatever you want to call it, to me, seemed to be when the atmosphere started changing and stuff like that, So, but I don't have one. I just love to use them. What's your favorite piece of equipment?
Oh, that's tough. I mean, there's so many different types I like to use. Again, anything that's
What wouldn't
adapted.
you leave without like it has to be with you no matter what?
A data logger of some kind. I know the EDI Plus is probably the most affordable one out there, and that's something that's blown up since we use it on A&E's Ghost Hunters, and something that people are adapting the research a lot. But data loggers in general, I mean, the EDI Plus is one that's available and more affordable, but there's others that we use outside of that are higher tech, have a little bit better sensors, and are more easily observed and actually ran into computers and data logged in a bigger sense. But definitely data loggers, because I think environmental conditions are a huge part of what we perceive to be hauntings and perceive to be paranormal phenomena. So that, to me, I cannot go into an investigation without monitoring those conditions. If I was to go in there and investigate without monitoring those conditions, I think it would be a lost cause. So.
What do you think about people where they say they feel, I mean, have you researched cold spots and hot spots?
Sure. Absolutely.
I mean, what have you concluded anything from that? Like what that, I mean, is there a possible of just a natural reason for those things to happen?
Well, there's, obviously going to be natural reasons for those things to happen, but there has been a big correlation, not only between cold spots, hot spots, but pressure changes and photon events. So these are things that we're trying to monitor throughout our investigations. And if we don't have data loggers running the entire duration of our investigation timestamps, we're not going to know exactly what the environmental conditions are naturally versus what we believe to be something we can't explain. But we have seen a correlation with temperature changes, pressure changes, and photon events, which are light events that do carry electromagnetic radiation. So that's something that Mustafa and I have been working on for a number of years, and I've been working on with Dr. Harry Core as well for a number of years. So there has been a correlation there. Can we say it's paranormal per se?
Right.
Can we say it's entities and ghosts? Not yet, but it's definitely something that's interesting that in a lot of ways, which we lay out in the book, Elements of a Haunting, that if you look at black hole theory and NASA observation of black holes, you see some correlations between what's happening in these black holes in space and what's happening in these said haunted locations. And that's something we lay out in the book. That's actually a very interesting thing. That's something to think about going into the quantum physics and mechanics aspects. So,
yeah, no, that's crazy. But you know what? The universe is endless, so who knows, I'm going to just interrupt because this came up twice now. Bill Davis, are you going to the hospital on College Hill? Just got back from there. And then Ray said, Brandon Alvis, what about the old hospital, College Hill?
Yeah. We'll be doing an event there with Ray. Ray's going to be, hosting the event and doing his whole thing. I'll be there with Kristen and Mustafa and Daryl in December. And I don't do many events. I've only done one since Ghost Hunters aired. I don't do a lot of events, and this is going to be my first one in a long time. So I'm really excited to get out there with Ray. And I think April's going to be there as well.
Yeah.
And anytime I can get out there with Kristen, Masafa, and Daryl, and let's go. I can't wait, man. I'm excited. Very excited.
Yes, I love April. She's my soul. She's my little soul sister. She's awesome. She said yes. So have you in your, I guess, have you ever had a paranormal experience, for lack of better? I mean, have you had something happen to you where you're like, yeah, that was, have you ever had, do you believe your family that is close with you? You know, do you believe that, because were you originally like setting out to maybe see if there was a way to connect with them?
No, that was never my intention. No, I never wanted to reconnect. I don't. That can come off very wrong, so I don't want people to think that I would.
No, no, no. I'm just curious. Like, you know, was it to connect,
Yeah,
or to maybe convince yourself that this wasn't it
yeah,
for them?
exactly. That's exactly it. It wasn't about connecting with them again per se. It was more about is there the possibility of an ultimate transition, the possibility of a life after death? We have to think about the idea that energy is neither created nor destroyed, right? Which is a huge theory in the scientific community. Um, our brains are firing off neurons at all times. That's energy in our body. Where does that energy go when we die? You know, does it retain consciousness? That's the big question. And does that energy retain consciousness? And is that what we believe to be ghosts and hauntings? That's what I'm looking for. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to find out. And I'm trying to find factual data and empirical evidence to support that.
yeah. Are you a? Have you ever thought about, like, what if you find out that, you know, it is all natural?
Yeah, I have no problem
And
with that. Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. You know, but
um,
that's what makes science so beautiful is that, you know, there's going to be so many different ways of going out there and conducting research. But one thing, if there's a tremendous breakthrough that's been found in the community, I mean, you think about the medical science community, you think about the scientific community. Anytime someone makes a tremendous breakthrough in their research, that research is going to be taken by other people and expanded upon. But you always have to cite those sources, right? And that's one kind of thing that's really sad about this community that we're in. Say someone does make a tremendous breakthrough, people will take that and not cite the original sources and turn it into something that's completely sensationalized or something completely fabricated. That chain of custody and that chain of, you know, command needs to retain in this field, just like it would in the medical science community, just like it would in the
yeah,
scientific community. But if we find something that may be a natural cause to what we perceive to be paranormal phenomena, that's not the end all be all answer. That research is going to continue, and people are going to pick up where that's left off and maybe expand upon it. So that's what makes it so fun.
so do you believe?
Um, I struggle with that every day. Some days I wake up and I say, "What the hell's going on?" Some days I say, "There's nothing going on," you know.
Yeah,
So it's tough, and I think that's what keeps me going. I've had some amazing experiences, but an experience is just an experience. Data is data, and that's what matters, is compiling that information, putting together a database, putting together a classification system, actually conducting research. You know, being interested in life after death, being interested in the paranormal, all fine and dandy, but trying to do something that's really never been done on a large scale and actually looking into what I call the great final frontier, and that's life after death. Space has been explored to an extent. The ocean's been explored to an extent. Life after death is that next great frontier. And that's something
yeah,
that I've dedicated my life to, and something that many times I have said, screw this shit, I'm not doing it anymore. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to do it. It's such a, sometimes can be a big burden on my life because it's something I take so near and dear to my heart and something that means so much to me, that I see a lot of the things that go on in this community and in the paranormal genre that's just so infuriating and
yeah,
so hard to swallow that it's just like some days I wake up and say, I'm not doing this shit ever again. I'm not going
yeah,
to pour my heart and soul into something for not only my own answers, but to try and make this idea of a possible existence of life after death, respectable. But it's difficult, man. It's hard. So I struggle with that belief all the time, all the time.
hmm Yeah, and like I I I got into it for the same happening. My father passed away. He was only 45. Passed away. He had cancer, but it was malpractice that actually happened. But so I was only 22, and I'm like, there's no way this is it. Before that, I didn't believe. I didn't know. I wasn't. You know, I had no deal. I had no nothing, no interest, no whatever. Um, but to me, I thought, I'm like, this can't be it. This
Right.
cannot just be. There's got to be something. He's got to be. So that was the drive for me, and for me, I feel like with the experiences that I've had, the audio that I've captured and this and that, and just all around, like I feel like it has, you know, I believe that there is something, but for you, I think what I was saying is like you're doing this on the scientific level, maybe, but what if it's like, let's just say in a perfect world, not in a perfect world, but let's just say for what you're doing, the end result is it's all scientific and natural, and no, there's nothing there. Like, don't you think that would, because you started to do this for your family members that you loved and cared about that passed away? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm asking
No, I
you.
understand. Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
I'd be at peace with it. I mean, honestly,
Okay.
I'd be at peace with the answer either way. I mean, I'm not going to, beat myself up over something I can't control and
Sure.
over something I dedicated myself to. I mean, if that's the answer at the end of the day, I'm gonna be okay with that.
Yeah.
And I can say that I, worked my ass off and I did everything I could to try and find those answers, not only for myself, but for the common, I don't want to say it that way, but let me rephrase in my mind really quick. Uh, to do it for myself and hopefully for the greater good of the community. I hope that I can do what I can to not only answer those questions for myself, but
Yeah.
hopefully make this a more serious field and taken more seriously by the public and scientific community. But if that's the answer, that's the answer. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. What so your family, like, what do
Mhm.
they how do they feel about everything that you're doing? Are they support it? Do they think it's, you know, I mean,
It's
because
in,
honestly, those three things are so tough to
yeah,
get through
absolutely.
as a family, and like especially suicide. I mean, suicide is very, I mean, it can really tear you apart, and
Right.
so, I mean, or how do they feel about what you do?
It's a kind of a mixed bag with certain family members. Some are more religious than others, but my parents, love what I do. I think they find it very interesting. I think they really like the critical thinking aspect of what I do. They know, I mean, they raised me. They know how I am. They've known how I've
Sure,
conducted
sure.
myself since I was very little. So they find it very fascinating and very interesting, especially when they saw the show air. They also saw everything I did prior to Ghost Hunters and all the research
Yeah,
I've conducted over the years, and they find it very fascinating. But there's other people in my family that are more on the religious side that don't look at it as highly and don't take it as seriously, and they think it's more on the negative side, but that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own beliefs and how they
yeah.
want to conduct themselves. But a majority of my family thinks it's very interesting, so that's been great.
That's awesome. That's good to have the support,
Yeah,
and it is a positive outlet to what happened. I mean, it's something positive. I mean, a lot of people would turn to, you know, drinking, drugs, or you know what I
hmm
mean, like but what you're doing, it's in a positive light. Um, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I was trying to share a question there. Does Brandon believe that there is anything out there that can fool science? If so, how does he compensate that possibly in his research?
Ooh, full science. I mean, I think there's things out there that can be a false positive or something that we may not quite understand in the moment, especially using certain types of equipment that's not been fully tested. Uh, But at the end of the day, I think science is going to get to the bottom of it in some regard. But there's always going to be questions. There's always going to be questions, and that goes for any scientific discipline. Like we talked about medical science earlier, we can talk about space exploration, ocean exploration, all of it. I mean, there's always going to be questions, and that's what makes science so fun and interesting. That's what I think that's always been the big problem with the field, is they think that science is the big bad wolf. Like science is going to come in and just say, no, it's not real. That's not what's happening. No, I mean, the majority of scientists out there really are interested in the possibility of life after death. And I think that it's something that they can look into and really help and benefit this community.
No, but I think it's needed.
Yeah.
Because you want to have the definite proof. Or, I mean, I don't even know if there's ever going to be ever such a thing as definite proof. I mean, nobody knows what it is. So how do you really 100% know how to research it? I mean, yes, you're doing is great. You know what I mean? But are you ever really going to come to a conclusion?
Are we going to capture an entity in a trap with Ghostbusters? Shit, you never know. Who knows?
This is true. I mean,
who knows? I mean, imagine what it's going to be like 50 years from now. I mean, look at the rapid advancement of technology right now. It's just absolutely insane. I mean, recreating the Big Bang. I mean, it's like all this kind of stuff. I mean, can you imagine if those resources were put? I mean, let's just say, who knows what the government's doing? Everyone wants to talk about disclosure right now with UFOs. Can you imagine what they're doing with the possibility of life after death that we just don't know about? Right. Can you imagine? You can go back to World War II and look at what Germany was doing. The Nazis were doing all kinds of occult type stuff during World War II. And there's a lot of word out there that research was adapted once we defeated Germany and Japan in World War II, that we adapted a lot of that research into the American government and military. So, I mean, is it true? Maybe. Who knows? But who knows what kind of stuff's going on behind closed doors when it comes to the possibility of life after death and the research associated with it. So who the hell knows what's going to happen?
I know. I was impressed the other day. My girlfriend, and I'm very technology slow, if you will. And she's like, "Oh, I have this mirror that works out with me." I'm like, "What?" Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, I have this mirror, and like there's a trainer, and he's like, tells me what to do. He can see me." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, the person can actually like see you? They're like, "Yeah, it's like a virtual trainer." I was like, "That's fucking weird." I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that, but that's just showing you how advanced everything is, and who knows? I don't know. I was going to ask you. It's funny you brought up, because I was going to ask you, what are your takes on UFOs, Bigfoots, cryptid? Like, what do you research that as well, or is it strictly this stuff?
Yeah, that's not really my forte. It's not something I look into. I mean, I would be ignorant to think that there's not some kind of intelligent life beyond Earth in some capacity. That could be an organism. It may not be a little green man or a little gray man running around in spaceships and stuff. Who knows? But I think I would be ignorant not to think that. I do like quantum physics and quantum theory, and I do love the theory of transversality and multiple, dimensions intersecting, things like that. It can get very interesting in that regard. It's a very large conversation that can be had when it comes to what we believe to be extraterrestrial versus interdimensional, things like that. It's a very large conversation that you can go down the rabbit hole with. But when it comes to cryptids and stuff, I think that there's definitely a lot of species out there that we don't know exist. I mean, think about North American wilderness, how vast it is, how much is out there. We can't possibly cover all that at all times. So there's possibly something out there. Who knows?
And the ocean. I mean, the ocean.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Like I say it all the time. I say that too. I say I don't spend any energy on all that stuff, but I'm like, I would be ignorant not to think that there was something else out there, And I said, do I think it's like little green men with big black eyes? No. I mean, but there, you can't think that we're this little speck of dust in this big, huge. I mean, really, you can't wrap your brain around it.
No. not at all.
It's hard to when you think about when you watch. Like I watch Unexplained with William Shatner. Like I watch that a lot. Love that show. Have you ever watched it?
I have, yes, absolutely.
So that's one of my favorite shows, and some of the stuff that they talk about, when with ancient civilizations, and you going back, it's just like, wow, like they had their beliefs too,
Mm-hmm.
and they also believed in rituals to do things like before you die, and so the spirit goes on. So like they all had it goes way back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
There's always been the theory there.
yeah, death culture has always been a huge part of, or should be a huge part of what we perceive in paranormal research, because going to a place that's said to be haunted is one thing, but understanding the culture associated with the people that lived there and died there and possibly could remain there is something that needs to be taken, far more seriously. And that's something that you don't see a lot in this type of research, which is kind of sad, is they're dehumanizing the situation. A lot of people see these shows and they want to have instant results in 42 minutes. And they don't look at this in a larger picture, which is very sad. These are people that lived, that died, that possibly remain in these locations and possibly retain consciousness. And it's a really bad, negative thing to go into these locations and abuse that in a lot of ways. So that's why it could be difficult sometimes for me to see some of this stuff and really follow some of the other research that's going on, because it can be so disrespectful. It can be so made a mockery of that it's tough. So
yeah. Have you ever been scared?
No.
No.
Yet. No.
Not yet.
Really. I've had moments. I've had moments in my mind where I, retain my logic and trying to find a natural explanation, or say rational, where I'm like, what the hell's going on? And your heart starts to race a little bit, your mind's racing a little bit. But have I ever been so frightened that I've taken off, left a building, or ran or anything like that? No, I haven't. That's why I'm there. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
That's why I'm there,
I don't think I meant like running away, but I mean like really like scared, like what was that?
Did I think the devil was knocking on my door? No, I've not ran into that yet. It's like you see so much of that, man. You see people going into these locations saying that they've been scratched, they've been bitten, all this shit. I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for 17, almost 18 years. I've never once have had anything like that happen to me. And I've been in locations that are said to have some very violent negative activity associated with it. I think that people want to believe so bad. And they want to be recognized so bad that they're willing to go to any lengths to make that happen. And it's definitely a tough pill to swallow sometimes. So
yeah. Well, I'm with you. Even like I love going to Gettysburg, and I just love it there. And and I was going there before I was into the paranormal stuff. I went there grudgingly and fell in love with it instantly. The history, everything. And I'm a very patriotic person too. So for me, Gettysburg.
Love it there, man. Same
Heartbeat
here.
of the nation, heartbeat of our nation.
Hold on. I'm going to show you something. 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you something. This right here is from the Battle of Gettysburg. This bad boy.
That is impressive.
I got this when I was 12 years old, the first time I went to Gettysburg. And we went to, I can't remember the exact, one of the many places you can stop where there's a living museum, right? I can't remember the exact one. It's been so long. But I was 12 years old, and they put me in full uniform with a drum to represent what it would be like being the same age I was and being a drummer boy in the battle.
Can you imagine?
Right? And this was given to me for doing that.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
Isn't it cool? And there's still dirt at the bottom of it and everything.
And that's great.
So I'm right there with you when you talk about Gettysburg and patriotism and stuff like that. I'm very much in that same way. So
yeah. And I actually hope to live there one day. Like, that's how much I love it.
Really?
Yes. I'm actually in my Gettysburg room. This whole entire room is just Gettysburg themed, everything.
What? Yeah. Man, I have so much Civil War pieces. I collect. That's one thing I do. I collect oddities and antiques, and I have a lot of stuff. So
Brandon, I have a certificate mustering a lieutenant into the Civil War. It's legit, like a real. I have it in a frame. I got it from someone. But yeah, October 1863, a lieutenant from New Jersey being mustered into the Civil War. It's hanging on my wall. I'm like, that is probably one of my most prized
you want to
possessions.
sell it?
Like, yes.
I'll take it
the,
out of your hands.
the seal, everything, the
Wow.
signatures on there. I mean, it's just crazy. But people I know go there and they're like, oh, I can't go there. Like, all I feel is like the death and this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel so sorry for you because it's not.
No,
It's really not.
Have you been to Vicksburg?
I haven't see, and that's the problem. I do know. I've been to Antietam. I've been to Harper's Ferry. I've been to I've driven through Williamsburg, but I have not been because I always want to go to Gettysburg. So it's like,
right. Well, some would say that the siege of Vicksburg was far more important than Gettysburg. So just so you know, that was a huge turning point in the war.
Yeah,
that's something you should check out for sure.
I would go there for sure.
Yeah,
but there's something that just pull. It's like a magnet for me.
Right.
I just love it there. Right. Amazing. I've gone. I literally go at least once a month. Yeah, I just can't.
Wow.
I go through withdrawal.
Jeez, I want to go there once a month. Jeez, I'm lucky I go there once a year.
Wait, I don't know if you could say it, but I have the coordinates tattooed. They're the Gettysburg.
Okay, yeah. That's awesome.
Like, yeah, she's batshit. Okay.
No. I'm a huge history buff. Trust me. I live it. I surround myself with it in my own home. This is my love, man. I live it. So that's my thing, and that's a huge part of why I do this as well. Not just the scientific side of it, but there's no better way than to relive there's no other way to relive history than through the paranormal.
Yeah.
If what we're actually thinking we're experiencing and what we're dealing with, that's living history. We are talking to these people that lived in this time, that experienced it. So there's no better way to relive history than through the paranormal. That's what I always say.
So what do you think about EVPs?
I think electronic voice phenomena is credible. It's one of the few things that can be tested by a third party. So say you have something that you believe to be electronic voice phenomena, that can be tested by a audio engineer being taken into spectrum analysis. You can break that down frequency by frequency. Is it a stray radio frequency? Is it a stray cell phone frequency? Is there some kind of man-made contamination? And if you cannot find that, but it retains itself by sounding like human speech and a frequency that we can't quite explain, we're left with something paranormal. So I love electronic voice phenomena. It's something I love to conduct in all my investigations. I think it's a huge part of the research for sure.
Yeah, I do. And because I go to Gettysburg so much, a lot of my EVPs are from there, but I have found that it's mostly intelligent, where you would think the theory behind places like that, is that it's mostly residual.
Right.
Which I've only had a few residual experiences that I believe might have, were residual experiences. But for the most part, I mean, intelligent answers to questions, and to me, that is it's interesting to me, in a place like that, but I love it.
It's funny because last time I was in Gettysburg, I was actually there with Grant Wilson, and him and I were there. We were filming Ghost Hunters. We actually didn't film in Gettysburg, but we stayed in Gettysburg, which is really cool. And him and I went down and we had lunch and hung out, and that was the last time I was there. Funny enough, it's been a couple years now, but that was the last time I was there with Grant Wilson, so that was a cool experience.
I would go through withdrawal. I couldn't do it. I would be like, no, a couple years. So the book is out, right?
Not yet. Pre-order.
Not yet.
Yeah, so it's available for pre-order. It'll be out on January 8th. Yeah, January 8th, 2022. But it's available for pre-order now, which is great. And I hope people pick up a copy because it's going to be something that's really never been done in the field. I mean, there's a lot of books out there about ghosts and hauntings, but I think that Mustafa and I have compiled a lot of research over the past 17 years to really implement these ethics standards, methodology, and protocol that I think is going to very much better the field. And I hope people pick it up, take a look at it, and really adapt it into their own research because I think it will really help us as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna get one.
Thank you.
I love that little thing you put up. I shared it on Paranormal Brew's page. I thought it was so cute. Where you're like, you're opening the.
we have a lot of funny memes coming out with that book. So it's we call it our shitty meme marketing campaign is what we're calling it. So we got a bunch coming out, and I think there'll be some familiar faces that you'll see with the book in their hand. Really terrible Photoshop, by the way, but it's cool. It's fun.
So, but you say you're doing like some type of a show too?
Mustafa and I have a new series that we're about to start shooting here shortly. Can't give too much information about it right now as far as where it's going to be, what it's going to be about. But I can say that Mustafa and I are very much stepping out of our comfort zone, and we're doing something that really hasn't been done in the paranormal space before. And we're really going to go out there and address a lot of things that should be addressed at this time. And I think people are really going to enjoy it and really like it. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air when it comes to this genre. And we're working very hard on it. And it's going to be something that I think that people will really enjoy for sure.
Do you ever get or help out private residents? Do people ever?
When I founded APRA, I specifically wanted to do historical locations because I wanted to base the investigations off of a history I thought would be associated with a possible haunting. We've done private residence cases over the years, but that's not really my focus. It's not about not wanting to help people per se, but there's a lot of legalities that go into it, and a lot of putting yourself in a situation that can be dangerous a lot of times because 99.9% of the time you're going to be dealing with people that are mixing medication, substance abuse, domestic abuse, some really bad cases that you're going to have to deal with from a psychological standpoint or, possibly even a law enforcement standpoint. And that's really not my goal. That's not what I'm trying to do. We've done it in the past. We may do it in the future, but that's really not my goal when it comes to the research I conduct.
So it's just the historical locations that you like to go to.
Collecting data and really trying to push the field forward from a theory standpoint and remaining grounded in scientific principles really what it's about. And a lot of times you go into a homeowner case and you start to implement that type of research, it does not go over well at all. So it can be difficult. And so we don't want to ruffle feathers further. So that's why we stick to what we do.
What's your favorite location you've been to?
Ooh, probably Fort Stanton, New Mexico, which was featured in season 2 of Annie's Ghost Hunters, where we implemented the EMCCD camera, had this amazing breakthrough with a photon event of what looked like a woman peeking out between one of the corners. And that very much was a huge breakthrough, not only from a scientific standpoint, the technology standpoint, but that place is just amazing from a historical standpoint as well.
Have you gone back?
No, but soon, hopefully. There's talks about that. We'll see what happens. That'd be great.
Yeah. What do you think about Skinwalker Ranch? I always ask everybody that.
I would love to get there. I mean, that's
you have pool, don't you?
That's a melting pot of what we talked about earlier about interdimensional phenomena, extraterrestrial phenomena, ghost hauntings. That's the melting pot right there. That's the spot. So is it sensationalized? Is it what people make it out to be? I don't know. I can't speak for it. I've read books on it. I've seen shows on it, but who knows? But I'd get there if I could.
There was like a lot of different types of research done there.
Yep.
Right. I mean, there's been claims like I won't watch. I'm a little bit of a animal sensitive. So, I mean, sensitive to animals very much. So a lot. So everybody's like, you don't want to watch it. They know me. They're like, don't watch the documentary. Don't watch the, but I've heard all the stories, and it's almost like an open area of 51. You know,
Right.
it's even I always say whatever's going on in Area 51, if the government don't want me to know about it, I don't want to know about it.
Exactly. I don't blame you
I
there.
don't want to fucking know about it. But the Skinwalker Ranch, like it just the stuff that you hear and all the research that's been done and everything like that. It still is never been. There's never been a conclusion to it.
Right.
I mean, a lot of weird stuff has happened,
But what
but
is it? Yeah.
what is it?
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. I'm happy. I'm glad that all this stuff. What time is it? We're at an hour, and we did get on late. So, um, but oh wait, there's a question. Hold on. Have you ever done an investigation in a cavern?
I've been underground a few times. Yeah, there's been a couple mines I've investigated before. I've been in underground jails, things like that. Yeah, so I've been underground in that capacity, and interesting stuff. It's Clifton, Arizona was one of those locations. We did in season 2 of Ghost Hunters NE, and we had some really strange stuff associated with a mine that was located not too far from Clifton. So there's definitely something going on there when it comes to underground activity, mining, things like that. So it's pretty weird.
What about catacombs? Have you ever been to any like catacombs?
No, not yet. I'd love to. I'd love
Yeah, that would
to.
be cool. I always want to like the pic. The picture Brandon captured was cool as fuck.
Yeah, every once in a while we get lucky. We throw a theory out and we actually we find something. We actually find something that can't be explained. So we've been lucky in a few instances and occasions where we've captured some pretty interesting phenomena. That's again, I think it's always the right place at the right time kind of situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think one of my places I want to go is Italy. I can't imagine, Italy. How old it is there. I mean, even like over all those overseas places. I mean, it's so much older than
Right.
here. That. Oh, you know what? I was going to ask you this, so I'm gonna put this question up. As somebody who focuses on scientific research, what are your thoughts on mediums? I was going to ask you if you've ever have gone to a medium. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And what are your thoughts? I was going to ask you too.
Absolutely. I'm very much open to all forms of research and ideologies and what people believe. I can't be closed-minded in that regard because I would remain biased if I did. I've been very lucky to work with psychics. I've been in experiments where we've conducted environmental testing around seances and psychics. We've done that on multiple occasions, and including Dr. Clore was there for those. And actually, there's a few videos I have on the APRA Paranormal YouTube page where we've conducted seances with a psychic where we try to, actually document the environment around it. So I'm very much open to psychic phenomena, mediums, all of it. I'm very much open to it. I would be closed-minded not to be. So it's something I, am always willing to do and always willing to work with people that have those abilities.
Here's a great show. Napa Valley. And
Napa.
then somebody just wants you to know that she thinks you're awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And there was a question. Okay. What is the correlation between haunted locations and ley lines?
That's something I don't know what the correlation is quite yet. I've been to locations on ley lines that actually had absolutely no activity, but
what are ley lines? Because I don't know.
Ley lines are geographical lines that go through the earth that sometimes certain locations that are on top of those ley lines have activity. So for instance, are you familiar with Sedona, Arizona?
Yes.
So Sedona, Arizona is on a geographical ley line, right? That they have more electromagnetic radiation and weird environmental conditions associated with those places in geography, right?
Okay.
So Sedona, Arizona, the same ley line that runs through that place runs through a town not too far from me called Ojai, California. And the funny thing is they correlate in the sense where people that are metaphysical and spiritual flock to Sedona. Ojai, which is significantly smaller, not too far from where I live, it's the same thing. People that are spiritual, metaphysical, flock to this place for some reason. There's an energy associated with it. A lot of crystal shops, psychics, things like that.
Wow.
Have I found that those places on ley lines have more activity than other locations that I've been to? I cannot say that quite yet. Because again, I've been at locations on ley lines that literally had absolutely no activity. But I do see that there's this common belief within people. Maybe it's a feeling within themselves or just something they're drawn to, that they go to these very specific locations on these ley lines. And maybe that's from the natural electromagnetic frequencies. Who knows? But it's something I really haven't looked into too much further than the fact I've been to locations that are on these ley lines, and some of which have had no activity. So,
have you ever been to? Is Jerome, Arizona, near you?
No, I'm in California. So.
Oh, okay.
I love Jerome though. I've been to Jerome many times.
Yeah, so I had somebody on, and he's a friend of mine. He does like he does a lot of live videos and stuff like that. He always does like live investigation stuff in Jerome. I don't know, like it's like supposed to be an active.
Very active. Oh yeah, Jerome's amazing, fantastic.
Yeah. I've only been to I've been to the Grand Canyon, so that was like it took my breath away. Pictures, TV, give it no justice whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you cannot capture it on camera the way it is in person in any way, shape, or form. That's for sure.
It is humongous.
Yeah,
it's like so absolutely enormous. You look at it on TV, you're like, okay, whatever. And there's people that actually, like, I was having anxiety because people were doing the pictures, like
oh yeah,
close to the edge. I'm like, they're crazy. They're insane.
You can fall off that thing like that, man. Like
and that's it. I mean, there ain't no coming back from that. I mean, you were literally so high up off the ground. It's like, oh my gosh, so intimidating. Okay, so I'm gonna let you go. Although I could talk to you forever, but it's I've kept you long enough. When is what? Oh wait. Oh, okay. So he was saying we noticed that these ley line energy come and go in waves, much like activity on investigations.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
Sabrina said the Bel Air house is supposed to be on a ley line.
Okay, nice.
So your new show, I know you can't talk much about it, but is it going to be like based on one place or a couple places? Or
can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can tell you. I can tell you this: it will not be in the continental United States.
Okay.
Which is interesting, right? You don't see that too much anymore. Everyone's doing the same old places over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. We're actually going to be going to a place that's never been touched outside of the continental United States. So that's all I can say. And it's going to be a different look at what we perceive to be paranormal phenomena. And it's going to be heart-wrenching. It's going to open people's eyes to the human aspect of what we do. And I think it's going to be something that's going to hopefully change people's perspective on what we believe is going on from a paranormal standpoint. So
that will be. And now, and this is, when does this air, or you can't say that
2022. As general as that is, that's what you get. I'm sorry.
You'll have to come back on afterwards and we'll have to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll have to bring Mustafa too. We should do it together. Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Yes, I would love to have it. John, my friend John says you're awesome. He's a medium, so he's your integrity is so important to you, and as an admiral, stay strong.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Is Stonehenge on a ley line?
It is. Yeah. Stonehenge. And I'm not talking about the Spinal Tap version of Stonehenge. I'm talking about the real thing. So, yes, it is. That's what they say. So,
I wonder what about, I don't know where this is at. You probably will know but you know those big heads and like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Easter Island.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are interesting too.
Well, the funny thing about those big heads is that there's actually bodies below them. They didn't know that until recently when they started digging down below. It's a full
Really?
They're full statues. Yeah, you should
So
look
they
that
were
up.
like,
Google that when we're off. You should check that out. It's gonna blow your mind. You're gonna be like, "What the hell?"
so were they
Yeah.
like tombstones?
There's a lot of different theories on it. There's a lot of different theories. So it's a
Wow.
full body though. It's like a full-on statue, and everyone thought it was just the heads because over time,
Yeah.
the Earth would build up around them. And so now, if you go look at it, it's a full statue. It's really crazy. It's really cool to see.
Wow. That place with the big heads is in New York City. I really read that like he was like really saying something.
or are we talking? Are we talking Manhattan? maybe Brooklyn even. I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Wait. So I tried to like copy your website, and this is how it comes out.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I don't know. So tell
yeah.
everybody where to find you because I haven't figured this out yet.
So just go to brandonjalvis.com. That's it. It's all of it's there. We got new information coming out. The pre-sale or the pre-order for the books there. I'm actually going to have the tickets available for the event we're doing with Ray here in December. That's going to be up on there. And we got a lot more stuff coming out here pretty soon. Masaf and I have been working our asses off. People have no idea what that guy and I have been doing. We've been working so hard, man.
That's
We have
awesome.
so much coming up, and we can't wait to show everybody.
Well, thank you for all your hard work for the field and everything, and hopefully, it does blow up and get to and educate everybody and the goals that you want out of it happen.
Hopefully, we're working on it, and we have some new stuff in the works beyond this new series. The book's going to be out January 8th again. Pre-order, you can get it now. And
April said she bought all of them. Nobody can buy any.
Perfect. All right, New York Times bestseller list. Here we come.
She's gonna April. You have to sell me one. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your time, and thank you for all the research you're doing, and everything that you and Mustafa are doing, and keeping the field, in a respectable light for those who respect what you do.
Yeah,
because I'm sure you have a lot of people that hate what you're doing because they're just hardcore believers and they're like, no, you suck.
And that's okay. I mean, like I always say, we're all entitled to our own beliefs and our own opinions. And there's nothing wrong with that in any way, shape, or form. But we're all human. We all have our own emotions, what we believe, and that's okay. So
absolutely. Brandon, thank you so much. And I hope you'll come on again. And when your new adventures start to happen and stuff, and just come on and talk about them. And wish you all the best. I'm going to buy your book.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night. All right. That was a really good show, right? Thank you, everybody. April, love you. If I didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. But thank you, everybody, for joining me. I will be on again Wednesday. There's lots coming up. I actually am going to Gettysburg again in July, and I'm meeting up with two of my best guy friends, Al and Matt from SRS Paranormal, and we are going to explore Gettysburg together. I love going with people that either are virgins or are not familiar, so I'm like their tour guide. That'll be July. Also, Fort Mifflin, July 24th. I'll be going live. So I'll be doing a lot of live Paranormal Brew videos from Gettysburg, from Fort Mifflin. Selma Mansion just landed July 17th. I'll be going to Selma Mansion, doing an investigation with some of my brewskis and some of my peaches. So that'll be fun. I'll be live for that. And then we have the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. Lots coming up. And again, every Wednesday, 7:30 here on my show, I will have a guest. So thank you all for joining me. And Virgins used Virgo speed. Yes, absolutely. But thank you all for joining me. See you next week.